Good morning. How are y'all doing today? So glad to see you all. I'm Mr. Edward and welcome to Cherubland. How's school been going? Pretty well, huh? Getting used to it. Getting to see some of your friends. Some are, some not. I get it. I totally get it. It's going to be a little bit different. But don't worry. Be okay. All month long, we've been talking about what? Friendship. And what is friendship? Yeah. Showing others you care for what you say and what you do. What you do. Not just saying, hey, you're my friend, and when time comes, either you know where to be found or you act like you know the person. You ever been in this situation? Nah. Not you all. You've never let a friend down. Have you ever been let down by one of your friends? Oh yeah. Everybody wants to talk about when their friend let them down. What about you? You gotta remember the time when what? Yeah. You let your friend down before too. Probably more times than they've let you down, if you really want to be honest. We all have. It's still what it is. So many people have. When we really look at it, we kind of wonder how good a friend we really are. What does that memory verse say? Where is it from, first of all? You remember, it was easy to remember. Yeah, Proverbs 17:17. Friend loves at all times. And when trouble comes, yeah, it becomes something that when you say that you're a friend, it's not like you got this cape that you could put on and pull off. It's not kind of like you're like this superhero. You get to be a friend today and, oh goodness, I don't want to be a friend tomorrow. Or it's not like, hey, I could be your friend, but I've got somebody else more important right now. It's at all times. Kind of makes you think, don't it? Friendship is very important, isn't it? It makes us really look at the word friend much differently. When you say that you're a friend to somebody, it's more than just being able to share skills. It's more than just being able to sing the same lyrics to the song. It's more than just trading dolls. You really get to find out if somebody's a friend when trouble comes. I sure do. I got a really good story for you all this time. And maybe it could help you all see. Maybe at times you weren't the best friend. Yeah, but I don't want to look. I know. Nobody wants to look at when they weren't the best of friends. But it's not until you look and see when you weren't the best of friends that you can actually go back and tell that person that you weren't the best of friends, and to be able to change their behavior to be that person's friend. Because if not, guess what? You may not ever be that person's friend again. It happens. Do you really want to lose a good friend? I don't think so. So, if y'all like, I can tell you the story, or I could not. It's clearly up to you all. What do y'all think? You think you're ready for it? I'm going to go back and give y'all some time, okay? Let me know. I'm glad you all decided to want to hear about the story. Well, this week we're going to talk about friends forgive one another. Who would have thought? To forgive someone, what has to happen? That's right. Somebody has to do something to you that either upsets you, disappoints you, or hurts you. There's no other reason to forgive anybody unless they do something that way. Nobody brings Mr. butter pecan ice cream and say, hey, I forgive you. Doesn't make sense. Nobody brings you a brand new toy and say, hey, here you go. And you say, well, I forgive you. Nobody invites you to the party and you say, well, thanks, I'm coming. I forgive you. Somebody has to do something that either disappoints you, hurts you, or upsets you. And at that point in time, you don't feel too good about it at all. You think about it kind of often. It changes the way what? Yeah, it changes the way you treat the person. Sometimes it even changes the way you think about yourself. So what happens? Does this stuff magically go away? No. A lot of times it sits, and it eats at you. It eats at you at lunch, it eats at you at breakfast, it eats at you at dinner. When you should be eating your lunch, breakfast, and dinner. It keeps you up at night when you should be going to sleep. It makes you feel lonely even when you got all your friends around. Well, the solution for that is this. Let me just tell you the story. Way back, and you all could go to John, the book of John, and read chapter 18 and also 21. 18 to give you a lot of background, but 21 to tell you the story. You remember Peter? He was one of the most strongest disciples, so he said. And so he thought. And so he believed. And so he wanted to show. So he tells Jesus, I'll never, ever, ever leave you. I'll even die for you. And Jesus in his honest self says, you'll deny me, Peter. Before the cock crows 3 times, you'll deny me. And you remember they went out into the garden, and that's when Judas and the Roman soldiers came to arrest Jesus. And Peter grabbed a knife and cut off the Roman soldier's right ear. And Jesus put the ear back on and told him, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, put it back in. So when they carried off Jesus, you remember all the disciples scattered. Well, they didn't scatter and just forget about what happened. Peter decides, hey, he's going to kind of follow from afar back and see what happens. So as Peter does, he goes where? right there where Jesus was at first, because he was going to the high priest's nephew. And as he was sitting outside, he was kind of warming himself, and I think a lady was just kind of looking at him and said, "Hey, are you one of his disciples?" He says, "No." Then another guy asked him and says, "Hey, are you one of his disciples?" He said, "Disciple, what is that?" "No." Then a little bit later on, he was asked for a third time. He got really upset when he said no this time. And as he said no, he heard the cock crow. Remember the rooster? Do I gotta make the sound? I think there's no rooster in me. It may be another animal, but not a rooster. So when he denied him the third time, he heard the rooster crow. There had to be a bad feeling there, because he had to remember. Because it said he went away weeping sorrowfully. Have you ever did something that you just, oh my goodness. Just want to hide your face. Ostriches actually stick their head in sand. I don't know if they're ashamed of anything, but who knows? But many times we want to stick our head in sand when we've done something to hurt someone else. We're being embarrassed. I'm sure Peter was very embarrassed, but most of all, he was hurt because he did what? He let Jesus down, so he thought. It's all he knew at that time. And to make matters worse, guess what happened next? You got it. Jesus was then crucified. Oh my goodness. Ooh, just to think about it. Put yourself in Peter's situation. He tells you, hey, you're going to deny me 3 times for the cock crow. And you holler back, no, I won't. And then you have your opportunity. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Just as our Savior says. Oh, well, let's not point our finger at Peter, because we've all denied him likely more than 3 times. No, we didn't hear a rooster crow, but we could think back at those times. Mr. I've never denied him. I bet you have. Let's take a look at it. What does Jesus want us to do? Love our what? Enemies. Bless them and curse us. And pray for them who spitefully misuse us or persecute us, that we may be children of our Father which is in heaven. He asks us to love our neighbor as ourselves. But first of all, he says, love the Lord our God with all our heart, our mind, and our soul. He also says, forgive, just as the Lord has forgiven you. There's also a parable where a time where Jesus talks to his disciples, and he said every people come, and he says, well, he asked them, he says, well, basically, what are you doing here? And they're trying to get into heaven. And they said, well, we've done all this stuff in your name. And Jesus says, depart from me, I know you not. And there's another group of people that said, hey, we want to come in. And Jesus lets them in because they fed the poor. They clothed the naked. They fed the hungry. He said, when you did it to these, you did it unto me. Have we done those things? Who knows? How many of y'all got some toys that y'all really don't need? I know I did. Wouldn't it brighten up a kid's day to get some toys? Who knows? What about shoes, clothes I really don't need? I'm not talking about the ones that you just got. Some we just hold on to. What about just a hug to somebody? All those things, he says you've done it to the least of them, you've done it unto me. That's what Jesus says. Stop, Mr. Elmer talking. You all said you all wanted to know. Here you are. Well, so now, imagine how Peter's feeling. I mean, no. If he denied him 3 times and heard the cock crow and went away sorrowful, imagine how much even worse he felt once he saw Jesus being crucified. Oh my goodness. You remember Jesus called Peter rock. And now, the rock's hidden somewhere. He's got to feel awful. That's how we could feel when we do someone wrong. We feel so bad that we just want to hide. Well, guess what happens? That's when the story gets great. Yeah, we serve an awesome God. So we all know that Jesus Christ rose from the grave. So the disciples, a few of them were out there fishing. Remember, Peter was a fisherman. He was also called Simon as well. Well, they were out there fishing. And they were out there all night long. And they didn't catch anything. And as they were coming back to shore, they heard a man on shore says, "Hey, friends, have you caught anything?" They said, "Hey." See, cast your net on the right side of the boat. And as they did it, they caught so many fish they couldn't even get it in the boat. Peter wasn't excited about the fish, was he? What was he excited about? He was excited about Jesus. He had to throw on his stuff and ran to shore almost. Just to see. How happy would you be? Just to see him. When they got to shore, Jesus had already had some fish and some bread cooking for him. So all the disciples, they got out, had the fish, they brought the fish in to him. Remember, Jesus already had something ready for him. So they sat down and, hey. Well, all that excitement. So it's kind of like being invited to a party, somebody that you did something wrong to. And y'all kind of finally get over in the corner, or get somewhere else and get kind of quiet. You don't want to bring it up. You don't know if they're going to bring it up. So you just kind of sit there looking crazy. Or even sometimes you try to change the subject. You really don't even want to mention it. Because, they invite you to the party, so you say, oh, they've forgotten about it. Let's move on. Remember this week we're talking about friends forgiving one another. There's two sides to it. Absolutely. So, here we go. It get kind of quiet with Jesus and Peter. Your parents, if you're ever doing something wrong, what do they call you? They call you by your maybe first and last name, don't they? My mom used to call me by my first and middle name. You knew, oh shoot, we've got to get somewhere real fast and in a hurry. Somebody is mad and they found out what I did not do or should have done. But Jesus calls him Simon Peter. He actually goes a little bit further in calling basically Simon of, his family name. And you remember I was talking about the animals. Well, he says, do you love me? Oh my goodness. Imagine how Peter's stomach dropped. Because very easily, the first thing in his mind was like, well, if you love me, why didn't you? Yeah, that's what we could say. But Jesus gives us again the what? The example. We don't say that. What do we say? Do you love me? Peter says, I love you. You know I love you. Jesus responds to him again and says, do you love me? This goes back and forth. And breaks Peter down to the point that Peter says, Lord, you know all things. It's kind of like I ask you all a little bit, maybe kind of not really similar. It's much bigger. But do you really want to find out? Do you really want to hear about this week's lesson as I asked you all? If y'all didn't, I wasn't going to come back. But since you all did, I came back and told you all the lesson. I told you it's going to be pretty heavy. But you all have some big muscles. I think y'all can do it. Jesus says, what? Peter, you can handle this. You have some big muscles. So, Jesus says, feed my sheep. What is sheep? Sheep, bad. Where did it come from? Sheep are these like really, really woolly animals, and they kind of go in flocks and graze in flocks, but they also have a shepherd that protects them. And it actually is a great relationship where the sheep only get all they need only because the shepherd provides it. That, where's that come from? The sheep, they don't really have the best of eyesight. They don't run fast at all, so they could easily be eaten up. So the shepherd protects them. The sheep walk around and they eat this grass. That's all they eat is grass and stuff. But some grass can actually make them sick. So the shepherd sees, hey, we got to put you in the right grass, because they really don't know the difference until after they've eaten it, But the sheep, they again, they don't have like a pocket knife like Peter did or anything else to protect them. So they're totally relying on the shepherd to protect them from all these other animals that can eat them up. Also, the sheep, they really, it's kind of funny. They don't like drinking out of moving water. The water has to be like still. If not, it scares them. And so the shepherd has to make sure they have like this water that they can drink, because if not, they'll die of thirst. You have to excuse my outburst. These sheep, they're actually like 1 year or older. So they're kind of a little bit mature, but they still need the shepherd at all times. But Jesus says to them, feed my lambs. Well, lambs are actually young sheep. Before they get to the lamb age. Jesus tells them to feed my lambs. Well, no, Jesus didn't leave in a pasture of lambs. You remember, he was a carpenter. He was talking about the sheep and the lamb, meaning the young and the old, the people that actually believe in Jesus Christ. The feed part, yeah, Peter hadn't came to my house. But you remember Jesus is called what? Yeah, the bread of life. Yeah, the day spring. He actually gives us this water to drink, and this bread, it fills us up every time. Well, how do we get this bread and this water? No, not again. We don't go to the grocery store. We go to the Word of God. We read it day and night, and we study it. We just don't look at the words. We try to find out what it means, even at a young age. You ought to have some Bible character or some Bible characters that you really enjoy. You know their story. You can tell it to like any of your friends. Then you read the story again and look at it differently. And you read the story again and you're like, oh, I missed that. You have several of them. Well, here's the thing. Jesus asked Peter, feed my lambs, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. All the time, Peter could have been like, oh my goodness. I hope he's not going to talk about when I denied him. Jesus says, here's your assignment. Meaning, our relationship hasn't been broken. I've been forgiving you. This is what I need you to do to help. I need your help. I've already forgiven you. And that's what we have to do to our friends. We don't talk about what happened and this and that and this and that. We give them an assignment to do. To love them just as I love them. So, you got both sides of it. You got to forgive And you also have to be on the other side. Yeah. Peter could have stood in the boat, couldn't he? Oh, I'm not going to talk to Jesus. He remembers everything. Tell him I'm not here. He could have hid in the boat. He didn't. So remember, friends, love at all times. And they'll even when trouble comes. Proverbs 17:17. Remember, a friend forgives one another. And what is friendship? Showing others you care about what you say and what you do. Definitely enjoyed you all. Think about it. Are you a sheep? If you are, hope you're eating well.